Are we overly optimistic to expect the 49ers to make the playoffs this year? I mean, they've only done it 4 times in the last 18 years.
And am I correct here? And my assumption was that your record prediction, I watched when you did the full schedule with your father, went through, and I think you landed at 12-5.
11-6, 12-5, one of the two.
11-6, 12-5 in that range. And that makes the playoffs most years. It would be a fluke if that doesn't make it.
Especially with 7 teams making it.
Right. So I think that you look at our predictions, and that's basically going game by game, predicting how one team will do against the other. So my thought was, well, let's get a little more granular. If we're making those predictions, let's start looking at the players and what we're expecting from the players in order to achieve that result that we have predicted in record. Because I agree with you, I would go anywhere from 11-6 to 13-4 as predicting the record this year. Yes. I haven't gone through the games yet, but I know for a fact that's about where I would land. And so now we need to think of some way to quantify these players. So I thought of 4 categories of projections that we could go through. And I think it makes sense not to try and fit the whole team in right now. We could do the defense this week. Next week, we do the offense and sort of wrap up what we think in total of it. Sure. So the 4 categories are, we project them to play at least as well as they played last year. That to me is the most reasonable assumption. If you have a history, a body of work, someone has played up to a certain level, and you expect them to continue playing at that level, that's not a stretch, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty normal.
Yep. Yes.
The next one is you're expecting them to improve their play, that you're expecting them to take the next step, or they are taking on an expanded role. So just to give you an example so that you know, like Samson Ebukam would fit into this category. He played one role with the Rams. Now he's coming over to the 49ers. He's being asked to fill a larger role. So you're projecting that he can fill that larger role. The next category is recovering from major injury, which of course we have a few of those players. And obviously there's some risk with that. And then the 4th category is a rookie that needs to contribute this year. And that's obviously like a 50-50 chance. I mean, worse if you're looking at the later rounds of the draft. So I think as you go down the categories, there's more risk involved. And the exercise is, once you have put the players into these categories, you can see, are the vast majority of players in the category where the projection is most accurate, that we just need them to do what they did last year? Or are the majority of the players in these concerning categories where we're projecting that they're going to do something they didn't do last year?
Guy. Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. So defense this week, just going through it. Would you rather go section by section and you give the names, or you want me to go through and give you a few of my names on each?
Well, you go first. You name some names and I'll see if I can add some more.
All right. To add a little context, I'm starting the defense on a high note, because when you look at defensive rankings for the 49ers last year, we were actually 5th in total defense for yards given up per game, right?
Yep.
But scoring defense, we were 17th, right? So there was a mismatch in scoring defense versus total defense. And I think that statistically speaking, you would expect that a 5th in total defense would be lower in scoring defense. So I think that there's some optimism in that the offense put the defense in some bad situations last year. Hopefully that won't occur as frequently this year. That seems more like a statistical anomaly. Yes. All right. Going with players that play at least as good as they did last year. This, I think, is a reasonable assumption. I think it's a reasonable assumption to think that Fred Warner is going to be an All-Pro this year.
Why would he not continue to improve?
Right.
He's 24 years old. He's only been in the league 3 years. Why would he not continue to improve? He can still improve.
Super heady guy. Yeah. Super smart, super physical, like working on his craft 1,000% every offseason.
Why would we think he's topped out now? No, I think he's still improving. Yeah.
Yeah. Still improving, and at least going to play as good as he did last year.
Yeah.
Dre Greenlaw. This one for me, you may disagree, but this goes into play at least as good as he did last year. I don't know that I expect him to take the next leap in pass coverage, but against the run, I think he is a well above average linebacker against the run, and I expect him to be that way this year as well.
He should at least be as good as he was last year. I expect him to improve, but he should not regress.
This one is with an asterisk because he's only done it really twice, and that's Jason Verrett. I think it's reasonable to assume that he'll have as good of a season as he did last year, but I don't think it's reasonable to assume he'll be healthy all year. So there's that asterisk.
We know how he plays when he's healthy. It's not like he'll come out and all of a sudden fall apart or not be effective. He's effective. We just don't know how many games he'll play.
Right. So like he's in the category, but there's certainly that little star there.
Yes.
K'Wan Williams, same thing. Except now he's older. He has an extensive injury history and an injury, from last year, not major, but missed some games, missed half the year. So he falls into that category of I expect him to play at that level, but there's another asterisk.
Yes. Cool.
Same thing with Jaquiski Tart. I think it's fair to expect when he plays, he'll be at that level, but injury history.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ward, injury history, but healthy for the most part for 2 seasons now. Certainly back to the medium, right? Back to the level of missing that average of 3 games in the NFL. And then E-Man Mosley is on there for me.
Yes.
And DJ Jones.
Yes.
So I'll tell you, I was actually surprised at the number of starters that fall into this category. I was not overly optimistic when I stumbled into this topic. I thought to myself, am I being overly optimistic? My immediate thought was, yes, I probably am, because I'm a diehard fan that just won't admit.
And Kyle Shanahan kind of made it seem like people are being a little overly optimistic at the state of the franchise. Like you had John Lynch over here being like, hey, we're better than the 2019 team. And Kyle's like,
yeah. I thought it was interesting. I went back and looked, and they cut that. Kyle answered that first, but they cut it and put John's answer first.
Interesting.
That Greg Papa was looking right at Kyle, and if you take the two and stitch them together, you can tell that it was a directed at Kyle. Kyle answered, and then John went next. But whatever media PR wanted it the other way,
right? Because Kyle's answer was so ridiculous. Okay,
it was pretty negative. So I was pleasantly surprised by the number of players that fell into that. Now, of those names, are there any there where you feel like you strongly disagree that you would pull them out of that category? Like, you could say with K'Wan Williams,
I got one more. One more. No, I disagree. No, I don't disagree with any of your names. But what about someone like Mike McGlinchey? I mean, how could he possibly play worse than he played last year?
Ooh, yeah. That one's on the offensive side. So
my bad.
That to next week. But that would definitely fall into that category. A little teaser for next week.
Sorry. Mike, we're going to have nice things to say about you next week.
We are. Yeah. All right. So improve play or take on an expanding role. Like this gets into the category of I don't think it's fair to expect them to do this, but we're counting on it if we're saying they're going to make the playoffs. Eric Armstead. We're all projecting that, a healthy defensive line will return Eric to 2019 form.
No question, right? That he won't have to rush from the edge anymore. He'll be back in the interior. He'll have the luxury of playing with Nick Bosa. All of these things. Yes.
Right.
They're paying him to give him 8-9 sacks.
They are, but that makes several assumptions. That assumes that he is more productive when he has higher caliber players around him, which I think is a reasonable assumption. But it's assuming that the higher caliber players on the edges are going to be healthy and make some impact this year. And that seems like a big assumption.
Yep.
All right. Recovering from major. Oh, no. The rest of the list on the improving play. Samson Ebukam. Got to name him. Samson.
Yep.
That's a big step to go from what he was doing in Los Angeles to what I think that we're asking of him in San Francisco.
What about Javon Kinlaw? Does he fall in that range?
I think Kinlaw's got to be in the improved play or take on the extended role. I think he's got to be. Yeah.
They need some sacks from him. They need more of an impact from him.
Yep. I wouldn't call it a disappointing rookie year, but I had hoped for more because of the guy he was replacing.
Let's put it this way. It's a fine rookie year, but it wouldn't be a fine second year. He needs to improve. Right. He needs to take the next step.
He does, especially if we are going to be another top 5 defense. We need to have that stout center of the line.
I think there's a lot of pressure and expectations on Javon Kinlaw this year. He may be up to it, but I think he needs to be good.
Yes, I would agree. I think he'll face a lot of scrutiny if he's not.
True. That's the way it goes. That's the territory with these first-round picks. It's why Jimmy Ward and Eric Armstead got a lot of crap for a long time, and why Eric Armstead continued to get the crap.
That's right. High expectations. All about those high expectations.
That's true.
All right, recovery from major injury. Really just 2, but they're pretty key positions, Bosa and Ford, right? Those are pretty critical. You're talking about your 2
Hold on, Bay Area Baller has one. What about Arden Key? That's his guy, man.
So, I mean, what I did was focus on players that I think are actually going to get significant snaps, and I'm just not sure Arden Key is going to get significant snaps this year.
But he's a sleeper. Thank you, Barry, a baller. We want to give him some props. Okay, what's the next?
If he's like D Ford, that I expect nothing from him. So if he gives us anything, that's a win. For sure.
I will say I expect more from Arden Key than D Ford. Is that
Yes.
is that controversial?
Because Arden Key will play. Even if it's mistakes, I expect more from Arden Key than D4 because it's hard to imagine him stepping back on the field.
Yes.
But yeah, so you have literally your bookend defensive ends that are all in question. And if you look at people that we're asking to improve play or coming back from major injury, all of our edge rushers are in those major assumption categories where we are making a leap of faith in saying that they are going to be productive this year. The entire edge rush.
Yes. The whole thing.
So it doesn't make me exactly comfortable about these projections. And then we look at, so one thing that I did notice a positive trend was that our entire defensive backs, all of our secondary is in that least risk category of we just need them to do what they did last year. But a lot of injury concerns. And this brings up our final category, which is rookies that may need to contribute. Mm-hmm. And that's the two cornerbacks, right? Yes. Any injury to our starters in the secondary along the defensive backs is going to bring in one of these rookies that is basically a 50-50 shot as to whether they can contribute in the NFL year one.
That's right. That's right. So those two corner, I wouldn't expect anything from Talanoa Hufanga. My goodness. Maybe. I mean, only drafted 3 defensive players overall.
Yeah.
But the 3 DBs.
You would think.
Honestly, you don't know because Jaquiski Tart misses he misses a lot of games. I'm sorry, yes. Jaquiski. His backup Tavarius Moore already out.
Right.
And then you got the backup there is Tony Jefferson, who hasn't played in a while.
Since coming off of major injury.
So maybe Talanoa Hufanga is the one that's going to be starting a bunch of games for this team.
He's certainly looking to contribute on special teams with the way that he hits. And I think that the way he could play around the line of scrimmage, that he could contribute as a rookie, but it's certainly a stretch to say that he will.
Right. So that's okay. All right.
So, I mean, it leaves us to final decision until we've covered the offense. But I got to say that I went into this thinking I was being very optimistic, that I was being overly optimistic. And in looking at the defense first, it gave me a little bit of hope. It gave me some hope that maybe I'm not being overly optimistic. There's some concern areas, but
mostly on the defensive line?
Mostly on the line, mostly on pass rush, which is arguably the most important thing that our defense does.
Yes.
So you could say is a concern. But I think we're being optimistic. I don't think we're being overly optimistic when looking purely at the defense. I think that we could have another top 5 defense this year. I think it's we did that without Bosa last year. So even if Bosa doesn't regain form, I think it's possible that we could do it this year.
I think it's fair to say the Niners have an extremely talented defense, an extremely talented roster. I also think it's fair to say that it's made of glass. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Prove me wrong. So given that, I think it makes it that much more important for the 49ers, for Kyle Shanahan, to make it a point of emphasis to reduce the amount of practice injuries as much as possible. If they can get to the week 1 relatively healthy, they should be okay. I know a lot of injuries happened week 2 last year, but a lot of injuries happened in the offseason as well. Ben Garland went down like first week of training camp. Deebo Samuel went down before training camp. If they could just not limp into the season, this team could go very far, very, very far. And you just laid out why. But even the guys that we like, that we think you can depend on, and you know what you're going to get, Jason Verrett, K'Wan Williams, Jaquiski Tart, Jimmy Ward, they all need to stay. This team is made of glass, and Kyle needs to be the one who keeps them in one piece. Humpty Dumpty over here.
As a fan, it pains me to agree with you there, but history bears it out. I mean, it's just a fact that we as fans have to look at and acknowledge at a bare minimum, even if we don't accept it and use it when we make our projections. But I think that it's, there is some room for optimism there. I think that it's not unreasonable for us to be optimistic going into it. I do wish that more players were talking about the recovery issue as Jimmy Ward did. I mean, you could hear it in his voice that he is really focused on that. And perhaps something he can do as a vocal leader within the defense is get up on the mountaintops and shout that to the rest of the team, because that yoga, that stretching, that recovery is critical in these soft tissue injuries that we're seeing with the 49ers. I don't know what type of bearing it has on the major ones, but for sure the soft tissue injuries.
I think what we're saying is that the only team that's going to stop the 49ers from making the playoffs this year is the 49ers. And that's the way it's been. And that's the problem with this organization. You can give them credit and say they have a lot of things going for them. They have talent. They have bad luck. It's beyond bad luck at this point. They get in their own way every freaking year. And it's like not cool. It's not amusing. You got to find a solution. You got to be honest about it. And I think at least the fact that we've diagnosed it properly, the NFL seems to be stepping in and diagnosing it too. They should be able to find the solution here. And Kyle, if you're the good coach that everyone thinks you are, year 5 and on, you should have mostly winning seasons from here on. You've built this whole thing. You have experience as a head coach now. You've learned the ropes. Just win 10 games this year, man. Just win 10. You can do it. I believe in you. I seriously do.
The motivation for Kyle, if we don't make the playoffs this year, Kyle, the NFL can force you to be the team on Hard Knocks next year. And I know you don't want that, Kyle. So remember, you've got to make the playoffs to make sure that doesn't happen.
One more thing, Kyle. You burned all your bridges in the national media. I don't know why you did that. But over this Mac Jones thing, you led a bunch of very powerful national media members to think that you were taking Mac Jones, and then you didn't, and then you kind of like laughed at him after. Like, I don't know why they thought that. Like, what were they thinking? And so now a bunch of guys who could have had your back and vouched for you and been like, yeah, Kyle's had 4 losing seasons in 5 years, but it's not his fault, and this isn't his fault, and he's really good here. No one's going to do that for you anymore nationally. I mean, you already saw Adam Schefter drop the dime on you yesterday. I don't know why you did that, but you need to win. Because if you lose this season, I'm telling you, there's going to be way less people defending you. The people who be defending you will be like, I don't know at that point. That's a good question.
I don't know if I will defend him if he has a losing season this year. I will take a very hard look at Kyle as a head coach if he has a losing season this year.